at a very early age, I knew there was an outlet, and I knew that was on a movie set.
It's a podcast called Still Here Hollywood, and if the host looks familiar, he should. In the 90s and early aughts, Steve Kmetko was the top entertainment reporter in Tinseltown. Then he lost his job at E! And left LA for Chicago. Now, 2 decades later, he's back. I'm Tandy Culpepper. Let's hear Steve's story here on the Hollywood Beat. Steve, it's good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too, Tandy.
So, congratulations on this new podcast, Still Here Hollywood. Tell me how this all came about.
Well, there's a producer who's very talented at his job. He has a number of Emmys and other awards, and he's responsible. He worked on the Today Show, and he worked locally in Chicago on their newscast many years ago. And most recently, he was in charge of the creator and producer of a Saturday morning show called Innovation Nation, and it's hosted by Mo Rocca. Well, his name is Jim Lichtenstein, and one day Jim called me and said, you ought to do a podcast. You have so much history of Hollywood under your belt, among other things, along with my stomach. And he said, you really should do this. And yeah, I don't know how to do that. I have never, and when it comes to doing something new, I have to be pushed. So he pushed me. He let it sit with me for a while. And then maybe a couple of years later, he called back and said, I'd like to do this, and I'd like you to be the host. Well, I think I can host. I've done that before. So he suggested it to me. He came out to Chicago to meet me and talk with me. And he knew my work from E! And from CBS.
Who doesn't?
And so he said, I'd like you to come out and do it live in Los Angeles. And we'll fly you out like once a month. We'll do a couple of shows, and then you can go home, which sounded good to me at the time. I'm not so wild about the trips now.
It's a hectic schedule, I guess.
Be that as it may. When you understand this, because you did the same thing. When we were entertainment reporters at respective networks, we would go out to a location. We would drive ourselves. We would do our homework. We would, formulate our questions. And many times you were given like 5 minutes to talk to the star. It's easy to fill 5 minutes. When you're asked to fill 30, you have to go at least 30 minutes, Steve. What? So that's probably been the biggest adjustment for me. Remembering what I want to talk to the person about. But many times, because there is a history, when I'm talking to somebody, questions will just come to me, and that helps a lot. If you're a good reporter, a good interviewer, you're listening to what the person says.
Exactly.
And you can, respond in kind. So
someone told me, and I can't remember who it was, that the best interviewer is a good listener.
Yep. I believe that too. So many times, I'm sure you've experienced this too, when I'm watching somebody do a show on a program on television, I'll say, ask them about this.
Follow up.
Follow up. They just told you something. Ask them about it. More. I want more. And then, I'm finding too, I wasn't accustomed to this, but with a podcast, I'm finding a lot of people respond and with not very nice things to say. Some of them will write, what a stupid question. Okay.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Oh, wow. I mean, there are some things you don't say the quiet part out loud.
Oh, well, I was interviewing Eric Roberts, and in the past I got to interview his sister Julia many times.
And we loved Julia.
Yes. But I've had a hard time getting her publicist to put me in touch with her, or I don't, you know how it is with publicists. Sometimes you call and you just have the feeling, you just know they're not even
Listen,
talking
I
to
don't
the
know who
star.
her publicist is now, but if it's the same person, Marcy something,
Marcy Engelman.
publicists can be a nightmare. They can also be your best friend,
Yeah.
right? And the assistants run Hollywood.
As a matter of fact, there was a publicist who used to work for Disney, delightful woman, Arlene Ludwig.
One of my best friends.
Yes, and she invited me to an advanced screening of Pretty Woman in the Valley, and I went there, and it was a big deal. As the lights came down, a whole bunch of men came in and sat in the row in front of me, and it was like Jeffrey Katzenberg, Michael Eisner, and then a whole bunch of suits between them.
Oh my gosh.
So I knew it was a big deal. And Arlene had called me and said, you know, we think this young woman, all she'd done then, I think, was Mystic Pizza.
Yes.
We think this young woman is going to be a big star. And if you like the movie, I'll make her available tomorrow. I said, okay, that's fair enough. And I loved the movie. I loved Julia in it. I mean, come on. The first time she flashes that smile. And I really did like the movie. And so Arlene made her available, and we did the interview in a hotel room. And I said to her, the first thing I said to her was, "Anybody ever tell you you have the world's greatest smile?" And she smiled through the whole interview. And she said that, "I'm going to smile through the whole interview now." I said, "Well, that's fine with me, because it's a winning smile." And
she has an amazing smile.
yes, and every movie she did since then, I think I interviewed her for, until I left Hollywood. And she was always so delightful. I interviewed her in London for Notting Hill. Yeah. Anyway,
They flew you all over the place, didn't they?
yeah, they did. It was nice. It was the best job ever. But anyway, I kind of lost my way here, but I was interviewing her brother, Eric Roberts. Because we haven't been able to get Julia to come sit down yet, I hope she will sometime. We always had a great relationship. I asked Eric, "How's your sister?" Knowing that they have not
a
always
bad
been on the best of
relationship.
terms.
Yeah.
Right. So, excuse me. So I asked him, and he said, "You know what? We have an agreement. She doesn't talk about me. I don't talk about her." Good answer. You know, that's fine. That's all I needed, was for him to say something like that. And he and then I asked him about his daughter. Well, the feedback I'm getting on my Instagram page, because that's where we post the podcast, the feedback I'm getting is like, "That's a lot. You have a lot of nerve. Why do you ask him about himself, not about..." Well, that was one question in a half-hour interview.
Exactly.
And you have these
and it's
people
perfectly relevant.
Well, I think so too, but we've done the job. They haven't, whoever they are. And it's like I have an upcoming interview with Chad Lowe, and I've been thinking already, do I ask him about his brother? It makes you second guess yourself. And while we used to get feedback all the time at E and at CBS, people would send you, emails or texts. And I'm just not accustomed to it this quickly, and with something that I still feel like I'm feeling my way.
Isn't he married to Hilary Swank?
He was.
Oh, they're divorced?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I remember one time at the Golden Globes when she won for Boys Don't Cry, I think was the movie she won for.
Yes, she did. The first of her Oscars.
Right. And I was backstage. They have that area where they come back and do one-on-one interviews, some of the stars.
Right.
It's always a madhouse. It's always a scrum. And I was trying to catch Hillary's attention to sit down and do an interview with her. and she was, everywhere else. And Chad was with her, and he said, Hillary, do Steve. And he brought her right over to me, and she sat down and did a nice interview with me. And so ever since then, and I said, thank you for doing that. And he said, well, I've always liked your work. Well, somebody says that, I'm like Trump. Tell me you love me, and everything's fine. So, and I won't beat you up.
So far from being like Trump, it is like on a different planet. Oh, well, God. No, nobody is like Trump.
Oh, no. I know. And we talked about the election on one of the podcasts, and we had to take it down because I don't know, we're not supposed to talk about politics.
What?
Yeah. I forget if it was YouTube or Apple or what it was, but somebody made us take it down.
Oh, or wow.
We took it down, we edited it out, and then we reposted it. But now I'm very careful about not talking about politics on my podcast. I'll talk about it on yours, but not on mine.
Well, I think it's a legitimate topic of conversation because we are in an election year. So
I wouldn't have anything nice to say unless you want to talk about Kamala.
Oh, God, Kamala. Don't we love her? I mean, seriously.
I voted for Hillary.
I did too. And were you on that rope line at the Century Plaza Hotel when there was some kind of benefit and Hillary was attending, and because Hillary attended, there were like 40 outlets down there and they had a rope line, and I got to ask her, a question. She went all the way down the rope line. The gala got more coverage than it would have gotten had she not been there. Fascinating. I love the Clintons.
Yes. I met her in Fort Lauderdale. I was asked to introduce her at the Human Rights Campaign was having a benefit.
Wow.
And she and Janet Reno were the two big speakers. And I was asked to come up on stage and introduce her.
What a thrill.
Yeah, that was pretty thrilling. The other thrill I've had since leaving Los Angeles is, now that I'm in Chicago, Barack Obama, while he was still president, was asked to speak to the Police Association of the World, the International Fraternity of Police, International Fraternity Order, whatever.
A bunch of order. Yeah.
And it was down here at McCormick Place. And they just asked me if I would introduce it, if I would make the announcements. I didn't get to meet him. I saw him. I waved to him. I was starstruck. I don't get starstruck often, but he was one. And I just had to make the announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, that kind of thing. So that enough was a thrill to look at the paper and see, please welcome the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Wow.
That was cool.
I should think. Getting back to Hollywood.
Sorry.
Hey, I'm the one that went off. Who was your favorite interview?
Oh, people must ask you this question too.
Constantly.
I don't have one favorite interview. I have a bunch.
Yes. Same thing.
I loved interviewing Betty Davis. She was a hoot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I interviewed her for Whales of August. And I've told this story before, but I like it so much I'll tell it again. I asked her what it was like working with Lillian Gish, because Lillian Gish could claim the same, period of time and
exactly
popularity and things of that nature. And she said to me, Miss Gish never should have left silent pictures. And I've thought to myself many times later, did somebody write that for her, or did she think it up, or has she said it before? Because it rolled off. She didn't pause for a second.
You know
But
what her most famous, or what is most salient to me about one of the things she said? After Joan Crawford died, she said something like, people say you should never say anything about the dead but good. She's dead. Good.
she was smart as a whip, and a real firecracker. My favorite, another favorite quote of hers. She was at a party supposedly, and some starlet walked by. I heard it was Bette Midler, but I'm not certain. And Betty Davis supposedly said, "Well, there goes the good time that was had by all." I love that line, and I've used it at parties myself.
Well, if you can't steal from the best,
Oh
what's the
yeah,
point?
if you're gonna steal, steal from the best. Anyway,
Exactly.
Betty Davis was a favorite. Cher, I always loved interviewing Cher, and she was very good to me. I interviewed her maybe half a dozen times. I even got to work out with her once when she was taping one of her workout videos. I was
No
invited.
kidding.
Yeah, I was invited to participate. Um, Robin Williams was always a favorite because the man was he was just as funny as you'd hope he'd be, I thought. He always cracked me up. And I liked his publicist too, who I believe, Mark Ruttenberg. I might be getting it wrong, but I think that's who it was. A large man with big beard. I loved him. Um, those are three of my favorites.
Going back to
Who were your
Cher.
favorites?
Oh, wait, we'll get to that.
Uh,
Going back to Cher, my brother made that movie Burlesque with Cher
mhm.
and Christina Aguilera, and I got to meet her on the set, and my brother brought my mother to the set, and Cher is so her mom, Georgia, was there. So her mom and my mom sat together, and Cher gave my mother so much attention. It was so sweet. And Robin, we were doing, my sister was executive director of the Starlight Foundation. And they did like Make-A-Wish. They did wishes for terminally and chronically ill children. So they were doing a silent auction, and I was asked to try to get things from celebrities. So I asked Robin, could I have, do you have anything here that you could sign that I could take for the silent auction? And he took his tie off and got a Sharpie from somebody and wrote on it, ties that bind, Robin Williams. Isn't that great? So when I went in to interview him, and he was a lovely man, when I went in to interview him, I was afraid that he would be on all the way through the interview. So when I walked in, I peered around one of the cameras like this, kind of like, you're not going to hurt me, are you? And then he peered around back like that at me. And I walked in and I said, can we have an interview where where you don't scare the bejesus out of me? And he gave me a regular kind of normal interview that you just wouldn't expect. Favorites: Julia, Madonna, Tom Hanks. Loved that man. Um, who else comes to mind? Oh, I'm sure there's others I'm forgetting, and that's terrible. But those three come to mind because I enjoyed them so much. I have another one in my head. I'm now going to ask you, who was your least favorite?
Least favorite. Who was my least favorite?
I've asked people this question, and almost everybody I've talked to says the same person.
I had a very advantageous.
Oh, hold on. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. I
Son,
apologize. On stun, yes. Okay, I knew that would happen. Okay, I interrupted you.
I had a really nice situation at CBS and at E. At CBS, I was the only entertainment reporter, of course, and at E, I was the host of their daily news shows, so I always had to be back. Um, and so I kind of got to pick and choose who I wanted to interview. If somebody came up and I didn't know that much about them, or I thought they might be dull, I wouldn't do it. So,
Right.
who did I not like? I had a couple of bad experiences, but I hate to bring them up because everybody loves these people except for me. Um, I had a bad experience with Henry Winkler, a bad
What?
a bad experience with
How
Billy
can you have a
Crystal.
bad? Tell me how many? What?
I
Fonzie?
gave I was reviewing movies early on in my career, and I reviewed one of his poorly. And he was happened to be friends with my news director, and he or his wife, I forget which, Stacy, I think is her name,
Yes.
called the news director and said, your entertainment reporter just gave this movie a bad review. Ugh.
I'll remind you of something that shocked me. Although the person who said it is not a nice person. I had an unpleasant experience with him in an interview, and we were in, I believe, New Orleans. I can't remember what the name of the film was. It was quite forgettable. And Billy Crystal said, I'm looking forward to interviewing or doing interviews with all of you people except for Steve Kmetko because he made my daughter cry. Do you remember that?
Nope.
I have never forgotten it. Not a nice man.
Well, I had heard from other people after that they had similar experiences. So I'm not I'm not at this point in my life at age 71. I'm not about to start bad mouthing people now.
Oh, that's okay. I just did it for you.
No, 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 no.
And I'm a year older than you are.
Good. Someone is.
But we're still here, Hollywood, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We are. So
Let me ask you about the name. Who came up with that?
the producer,
And
he
you,
wanted to make it a show about people we don't hear from that much anymore. But then as we got into it and started trying to book guests, you tell them still here Hollywood, and they don't want people to think they're gone.
right.
Or they've left. So he instead tried to turn it around to be about me. I got here in 1982 and I'm still here, Hollywood, that kind of thing. And so, I don't have a problem with that. And so that's what we do, hoping
exactly.
that.
But why did it take you 2 years to acquiesce to doing this?
Oh, no, it didn't take me 2 years to acquiesce. His first suggestion had been, what you should really do. And then when he came back to me, it was, I would like to do this and I'd like you to host it. Well, that sounded a lot easier to me, a lot more interesting. So that's what I did.
You may not know this or remember it. I think I may have told you, but you left Wave TV in Louisville.
Right.
When you're from Louisville, you say Louisville. If you're not, you say Louisville, and they will correct you in 2 seconds. The month after you left Wave, I arrived at Wave. I took over the morning slot that Ryan Halloran had
Mhm.
done for 30 years or so. They built a brand new set, kitchen set, the whole thing. I did that for about 3.5 years. And during that time, you were establishing yourself as one of the preeminent, if not the preeminent, entertainment reporter in Hollywood at that time. There was Gary Franklin, and then who was that other guy?
David Sheehan.
David Sheehan. Interesting personality. And
Don't speak ill of the dead. Don't say, only say good of the dead.
only
They're
good if
both
they
gone
did.
now.
They're both gone, aren't they? Yeah,
Good.
David was interesting. And now there's George Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, who's been on the air forever.
I know. Yeah. Anyway,
And Sam Rubin,
oh,
who
and
recently
Sam, oh my
who
God.
passed away in May.
That was a shocker. He was only 60 or 62. I think 60. Um, yeah, that was quite a shock. So, still here, Hollywood. You said you want to try to get Julia. Wouldn't we all love that? Let's talk about the circumstances, if you don't mind. You were uh, hosting, what was the name of the show on E News?
E News Daily.
There was some woman there that people were calling the Queen of Mean. She wound up herself after I think she took part in your being let go. And not long after that, if I'm not
Mindy
incorrectly,
Herman.
got rid of her.
Mindy Herman, the general manager.
And
Yeah.
she was shown the door.
Yes. And I literally kept the articles that were in the LA Times about her departure.
I know because I was quite stunned to 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 be I mean seriously, I was gobsmacked when you were let go. I thought, are they out of their freaking minds? It made no sense to me. Tell me exactly what happened.
Um, well, I entered into contract negotiations, even though my contract wasn't up. It was coming up for renewal, and I entered into contract negotiations. And there was this kid who had created a website for me. Very nice, Kmetko.com. He asked if he could have that name, that title. And I told him yes. I didn't know what I could do with it. I didn't think about it much. And he created it. And lo and behold, the kid did a great job. He would take screen captures, and people started writing to him, and it was really quite nice. And so when we got further along in my contract negotiations, and he was being a stickler, not giving me what I wanted or what my agent wanted, I wrote a letter and posted it on the website saying, I think very innocently, if you like me and you want me to stick around, please write to the general manager. Please write to Mindy Herman at entertainment.com. And what I was told was she got furious because she got so many emails.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so she asked me point blank, did you do that on a company computer? Quite frankly, I couldn't remember. But as it turns out, she had the people in IT go through all my emails and see that I did, in fact, write that email on a company computer. And so it was she considered it insubordination. And she fired me. And my agent, Mark Itkin from William Morris, called me. I was on my way. He said, what you need to do is go upstairs and throw yourself on the mercy of the court. So that's what I did. I went up, I apologized. I said, I shouldn't have lied to you. Uh, when we had that little conversation in her office, she got up from behind her desk, came around, gave me a hug, and she said, I knew you were a man of integrity. Thank you for coming up here, blah, blah, blah. So I was feeling pretty good after that. I thought I'd saved my job because I loved that job. Believe me, I would tell anybody at the time, I would tell anybody, I loved that job. And I got in the elevator, went down to my car, got in the car to go home because it was the end of the workday. And my cell phone rang, and it was my agent. And he said, Steve, they're firing you anyway. What? What did you say? um, you know, I was so disappointed. And that's when I really started drinking and got into trouble with booze. And
we've all been there, and those who of us who haven't, it's just a matter of time.
oh, come on. Some people have self-control. I was not one of them. So anyway, that's how it happened, you know. And then I couldn't understand. I had several job interviews after that. One at TV Guide Channel, one at where does Mario Lopez work? Is that Access or Extra?
I can't remember.
And I interviewed there. And the interviews seemed to go very well. But then I got a call from my agent saying, everybody says you're too closely associated with E, that you're their brand.
Oh my gosh, that's such bullshit.
And they don't want to add you to the mix. Yeah, you know, I could never figure it out, and it wasn't worth wasting too much time over.
We were ahead of our time because both you and I were fired by a station for being gay.
Yep.
And
Grand Rapids, Michigan for me.
For me, it was my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama.
Mm.
And I thought that I was 40 and I thought I'd never work again. I didn't sue because the lawyer I talked to said it's not against the law to sue to fire someone for being gay in the state of Alabama. I'll get you maybe $100,000. I'll take 30,000 off the top. You'll get 60,000. You'll be known as the reporter who sued, and you'll never work again. So I tucked my tail between my legs, took the severance, came out to LA, and lo and behold, I got that job. I was with Ken Lindner in those days. And
I was with him for a while.
Were you?
Yeah.
Babette Perry. But yeah, and I was there 14 years. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed it a lot. What do you think about the state of news, not entertainment news, but news in general and how it's covered now by cable news? Oh, I got to bring this up before we get to that. Have you read the story that there is internecine warfare in the Murdoch family?
No.
Okay. Yesterday, there was a story that Rupert Murdoch, who's 93 now, was trying to alter the terms of the irrevocable trust he set up because one of his wives that he divorced, who was the mother of his children, said that in the divorce papers, the children were each to have equal shares in the Murdoch empire. Now, he's trying to alter the terms of the trust so that his eldest son, Lachlan, who is cut from the same cloth as Rupert, who is conservative as hell, can take over running it, while the three other children are moderates and want to make Fox what it was when it first came on the air. I don't know. Do you think that'll happen or not? How long can he live?
Well, he's certainly past his sell-by date. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I often say anything can happen in Hollywood, and I believe that. I don't know how long that could last. Fox talked to me at one time when Barry Diller was there. In fact, I talked to him about coming to join them when they were first becoming a network. But, you know, for whatever reason, it didn't happen.
It's a good thing you didn't. I had two friends who were reporters there. They left after a year because it started to go sideways.
Yeah. Well, what do I think of news today? I couldn't do it. I know that. Because it's everything is packaged like an entertainment show. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I have a hard time watching the local news.
If it bleeds, it leads. That's still the case.
Yeah.
I don't watch local Los Angeles news. It's I have this expression that I said years ago: any excuse for a live shot. You know, it's I remember someone did a stand-up in front of a house that had nothing to do with the story, and the owners of the house sued and walked away with a bundle. You know, they talk about ethics in broadcasting, and I sometimes think that's an oxymoron. It's just changed so much since I was a Cub reporter. I got. Were you ever a hard news reporter?
General assignment. Sometimes hard news came up under that heading.
Yeah,
I remember a line from the show Lou Grant, where I forget the young buck who was a reporter in the newsroom. I remember he defined himself as a general assignment reporter, and Lou Grant said, "Oh, somebody who's equally ignorant in all areas." Yeah, I've always remembered that. That's me, equally ignorant in all areas.
Well,
I did hard. Yeah, I did hard news.
Yeah, I saw one too many dead bodies, and got to a and this was one that really made. I got to a story. Our assignment manager was the wife of some sheriff deputy, and they got a tip that there was a small plane, single engine plane, that had landed on a dirt road out in the boonies. I was in West Palm Beach at the time. This was out in the boonies. And it was thought that it was a plane that flew in with cocaine. So my videographer and I went out there, and the plane was there. There were boxes and boxes strewn around the road of drugs. And I turned to him and I said, "Shoot the hell out of this quickly. These guys are watching us right now. I can guarantee it. And we got the hell out of there. And I got back and I told her, there were no cops there. What are you doing? You want to get me killed? And then another time, I got to a place where there was a dead body, a guy in front of a house, his son and another boy had had an argument. So the father of the other boy brings his gun, goes over to the house, gets into an argument with the father of the other boy, shoots him, gets in his car, and rushes off. We shot all of that. I get in the car, and the assignment manager radios and says, follow the perp. I said, Carol, he has a gun. So after that, I got an offer to do a morning talk show. And I was like, I am never doing hard news again. I wasn't cut out for it.
Yeah, it's not my cup of tea either.
Now you went to, was it Columbia?
Columbia College here in Chicago.
And you majored in broadcast journalism.
Yep.
When did you know that's what you wanted to do?
When somebody suggested it to me. You know, this got me in trouble once at CBS. I did a promo for our entertainment reports where I said, I always thought I'd be an entertainer, but I can't sing or act or dance, so I'm a critic. Oh, I got a lot of shit for that. Pardon me. And someone suggested to me, why don't you become a reporter, entertainment reporter? And I thought, well, you know, that's the next closest thing. I think I could do that. You know, that's really, it was a woman I worked for. She suggested it.
You and I have so much in common. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I wanted to be a print journalist. So I was getting my master's in English and I worked on the city desk at the local paper. And I became somewhat disillusioned by that for some reason. So then I taught high school English for 2 years, still not having a clue what I wanted to do. And I got this crazy idea because when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, child actor, right? So I thought, I'll go to Hollywood and see if I can do that. And I got an agent, believe it or not. But then I realized that I really didn't have the, Kate Jackson once said, if there's anything else you can do besides this, do it, because it's a really hard life. And I didn't want to wait tables, you know, be the starving actor. So I took stock of everything I liked. I liked performing. I liked writing. I was curious about everything. And I thought I should be a reporter in television. And I knocked on every door I could, and nobody would give me the time of day. But you went to the station when you were on vacation somewhere and said,
Rhinelander, Wisconsin.
I think I can do a better job. How ballsy was that?
Well, apparently they thought so too. The person who I had been watching, who has remained a friend all these years later, I had watched him. I'd gone up to vacation in the north woods of Wisconsin with my wife. And I took a small black and white television with me because the place we were going, the cabin we were going, didn't have any TV. And I got up there and it only got one station, Channel 12. And so I started watching, and The week we were there, of 5 nights, the sports guy forgot to put on his microphone. I think 3 of the 5 nights.
No.
Yes, and one time when I was watching, somebody on the floor came up behind the desk, and you saw this hand coming up over the edge of the desk to hand him his microphone. His name is Tom Cook, and he put it on, and I said to my wife, I can do a better job than this guy. At least I won't forget to put my microphone on. And we were driving out of town. The vacation was over, and I stopped at the station, and they took me in. They sat me down behind the desk. They gave me some rip and read copy. I read it into the camera. The general manager hired me on the spot.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I was back there in a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rhinelander.
And I was only there for 10 months. And then I went to Green Bay, Wisconsin, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Louisville, Kentucky, and Los Angeles, all in 5 years.
In 5 years?
Yep.
It took me 10. And I thought that was quick. I had no plan. I would see an ad in Broadcasting Magazine, and I would go, that sounds like fun. And so I went there, and then I went on a junket from, I was doing a morning talk show in the Triad of North Carolina, Winston-Salem, High Point, Greensboro, which was the 50th market. I went to a junket for Barbarossa starring Willie Nelson that was at Lake Tahoe. So we flew into Reno, and there was this huge billboard at the airport that said PM Magazine, weeknights at 7. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So not long after, there was an ad in Broadcasting for PM Magazine in Reno. So I sent a tape, 160th market. I wasn't thinking strategically because I was just kind of going wherever the wind blew me. But I waited 6 weeks. No response. I forgot about it. One night, my phone rang. It was the producer. I said, "Hi, Terry, what took you so long?" And she laughed and she said, "We love your tape. Did you produce all those?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Why did you wait 6 weeks?" "Well, we hired somebody and he took another job. So we don't want to fly you out for an interview. We want you to just come." And I thought, well, that's weird. But I did. I had the time of my life, even though it was, I made lifelong friends there. So, I wasn't strategic. I interviewed too. This is weird. I interviewed for a morning talk show at WGBH in, I think that's it. No, the NBC affiliate in Boston. Me, one other guy. The program director had worked with the other guy at a station in Providence. So she hired him. His name was Matt Lauer. If they'd hired me and I'd gone to the Today Show, well, they might have not liked having a gay. But now it's cool, but then it wasn't.
Yeah, now it's cool. Yeah, that's a funny thing. We do have so much in common. I'll bet you never got married, but
came close.
When I first went to they called me in, and because they knew I'd lost my job at CBS, and they called me in to fill in for their news host, over Christmas week. Sure, I'll come in. And they hired me pretty quickly after that. But I was told, we just had Matt Lauer in here and that was before the Today Show too. We just had Matt Lauer in here for, to audition. Oh, really? So that made me feel pretty good. if they had Matt Lauer in and they're having me in.
You know, he was out of work for 3 months. When here's the thing that was so funny. I sent a 20-minute long resume reel to Boston. When I got up there, I said, "So how many reels did you get?" She said, 200. I went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She said, "Why?" I said, "I sent you a 20-minute reel." She said, "Oh, we just kept waiting to see what you were going to do next." And I said, "Okay." But they hired him. The show got canceled 3 months later. And I kept thinking, if you'd hired me, it wouldn't have gotten canceled, because I produced my show in Louisville. And so, you know, you have to be a jack of all trades.
That's the saying.
Is that the saying? I thought I mixed my metaphors, but in markets that are not Los Angeles or the major markets, you don't have a lot of producers doing stuff for you. I had an assistant. I had Well, in North Carolina, I did have two producers. I will take that back. And I got to interview Maya Angelou there.
Oh,
A big thrill. Okay, let me ask you, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share?
yeah, I suppose so. I don't know if you ever feel this way, but sometimes I feel like I'm running out of time. Even though I think I've lived a pretty good life, and a lot of people tell me I have. But I had a stroke 2 years ago. I know you've had some health issues too, and that kind of made me see the light. I don't know what light, but a light. And I sometimes think how much. And my brother just started undergoing treatment for cancer,
Oh, I'm so
and,
sorry.
and he's in the midst of it. He just started it 2 weeks ago. He goes to the
Chemo and the
hospital.
whole bit,
Hmm.
chemo and radiation.
Both at the same time, yeah,
Oh,
every day, and he's 85.
wow.
So,
Are you the baby?
yep, yep. And he was the oldest. And my three sisters, I had three sisters. They're all gone. I worry about my brother now. I went to his house. Fortunately, he's gay too, and he's married and has been with the same guy for like 40 years, Raphael.
Oh, that's so
And,
nice.
yeah. So he's got and Raphael is 20 years younger. So I'm glad he's got somebody there. But, the other day, Raph had to go to work, and he asked me to go over and stay with Tom because he'd fallen several times and needs a walker now. So I went over there and, kind of like I was caregiver for an afternoon. So and I'm doing them a favor tomorrow morning. They have a good friend who's been a friend of our family for a long time. She's 92 and bedridden. So they go to see her every week. And so I told them I would go tomorrow morning
Oh,
after the
you got a
gym.
good heart, Steve.
Eh, I don't know how much longer it's going to keep beating. Anyway,
I share
um,
I share what you said. It kind of hit me. I haven't thought about it. It hasn't been something that's um you know uh been top of mind, but I did have this realization in the last few days that the actuarial table,
mhm.
the I don't know if it's the median or the average uh, lifespan of an American male now is 73. And I thought, wow, that really?
You better get
My,
busy.
I'd like to say this in wrapping things up. I told you this once, many moons ago. I know you won't remember it, but we were on some kind of shoot where we had our own gear. Might have been a premiere. I saw you carrying tripod. I was carrying a tripod. And I said to you, when I grow up, I want to be Steve Kmetko. Because that's how much I thought of you.
Thank you. That's awfully nice of you to say.
Well, you were the best and the brightest of our merry band of entertainment reporters back in the day. So I am sure that there have been people all over the country who saw you when they were young and were inspired by what you did and thought, I think I want to grow up and be Steve Kmetko.
I'm sure they said the same thing about you.
I don't know, but wouldn't it be nice if they did? Steve, thank you so much for
You're
talking to
welcome.
me.
Thanks for being interested.